I'll do major stories out of the Vatican today. Pope Francis names a new leader for the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. He also appoints a religious sister born in Italy as the first female prefect of a Vatican Dicastery. Sister Simona Brambilla will head the Holy See's Department for Religious and Consecrated Life. The 59-year-old previously had been the Dicastery's secretary. The Vatican also announced that Cardinal Robert McElroy will lead the Archdiocese of Washington. The 70-year-old cardinal moves from San Diego and will take over an archdiocese with more than 500,000 Catholics. He replaces Cardinal Wilton Gregory, whose age-related resignation was accepted earlier today. Cardinal Gregory is 77 years old. And for more on all of this, let's turn now to Dr. Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director for EWTN News. Matthew, great to see you. First off, your reaction to Sister Simona's appointment and the significance of it.
Well, I think Pope Francis has started the year with some pretty significant moves. We have anticipated over the last few years, especially since the promulgation of the decree called Predicate Evangelium, that there would be women continuing to be promoted to different Vatican offices. We've seen that as really one of the hallmarks of this pontificate. What this does is to take the unprecedented step of actually appointing, in this case, a woman religious, as you said, Sister Simona Brambilla, to the role of prefect of one of the Vatican's major dicasteries, in this case, the dicastery that oversees men and women religious around the world. This, as I said, is quite the innovation, but it continues one of the real determinations on the part of Pope Francis, both to elevate the role of women across the board. Now we have about 23% of Vatican employees are women, especially holding positions of authority. And this is a pattern, I think, that we're going to see continuing. So all things are possible. It's worth noting, however, that she will be joined in this new leadership role by a cardinal who will be actually working for her. And that is Cardinal Angel Fernandez Artim, who will be pro-prefect of the same dicastery, in part because there are certain functions that still have to remain among those who are ordained. But again, this is a very major development.
Yeah, it certainly is. Can you talk to us a little bit more about her background and exactly what she will be doing in this new position?
Yeah, she's a very long-time member of the Consulata Missionaries. She served for a number of years in Mozambique and then was also the head of the Consulata Missionaries for about 14 years before being appointed to one of the dicasteries, in fact, the very one that she's now running. She's extremely well educated with the Gregorian University with degrees in psychology. And now coming into this role, she's going to be, like I said, the highest ranked woman in the Vatican. There's a woman who's actually in the second position for the governorate of the Vatican City State. That was considered to be very important. This, however, is even more significant.
Yeah, and what's been the reaction?
People around the church, I think, weren't necessarily surprised. Again, this is somewhat anticipated in Predicate Evangelium, but I think it's being welcomed in many different quarters. There are still a lot of canonical details and perhaps even theological details that will have to be worked out a little bit as to how she will be sharing this authority, in part, with Cardinal Artim. But let's make no mistake, Pope Francis has put her in charge of this dicastery, and people all over the world are taking notice.
Yeah, definitely. I want to talk about what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. Cardinal McElroy, who's coming from San Diego, and he's going to be named to lead the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. And as we mentioned, 500,000 faithful here. What more can you tell us about him, Matthew?
Well, he is certainly one of the most highly educated of the American bishops. He has 2 doctorates from Stanford, I believe, and also the Gregorian University. He is also considered, however, one of the most progressive bishops in the U.S. and a longtime self-proclaimed champion of certainly what he sees is Pope Francis's vision for the Church. He's been rewarded for that. He's had steady promotion, including to the cardinalate in 2022, and there has been an expectation for a while that he was going to be named to one of the larger sees in the United States, so here we are. The timing, of course, is very interesting here. 2 weeks before the inauguration, I think that's being interpreted that Pope Francis really wants his voice in D.C., the seat of the American government. He has most certainly been a critic of Cardinal McElroy has of Trump's policies in the past, especially immigration. Today, in his press conference, however, he struck a pretty moderate tone. He expressed his hope for the success of the administration, for the good of the country, but at the same time, he signaled his determination to speak out and to oppose those policies on the part of the incoming Trump administration. that he sees might be contradicting Catholic social teaching, especially the dignity of the human person.
Yeah, very interesting indeed there. And as we mentioned, he's going to replace Cardinal Wilton Gregory, who's stepping down at the age of 77. Talk to us about his legacy here in Washington.
Yeah, Cardinal Gregory is a figure who has been in service for the church as a priest and a prelate and then as a cardinal for some 50 years. He was a convert. He at one point was the youngest bishop in the United States. He was also the first African-American president of the USCCB. He was also the first African-American to serve as the Archbishop of Washington. He was also the first American cardinal. He has built a legacy of trying to build a consensus, of reaching out. But I think he will also be remembered, especially for his time as president of the conference in those very dark days in the early 2000s, when the clergy sexual abuse crisis exploded. As president, he was able to shepherd the conference through those difficult days that ultimately ended with the approval on the part of the Vatican of the Dallas Charter, the norms for protecting minors. That is a norm that we still have, and that has really established certainly the U.S. Church as one of the gold standards for the protection of minors across the United States. He would be the first to say that much more needs to be done. And I can say that Cardinal Gregory will be leaving that as, I think, one of his biggest legacies. And I think he'll be remembered for that for many years to come.
Yeah, definitely a really big day indeed as well. Dr. Bunson, always great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you, and Happy New Year.